Okay, so we're looking at this problem and you want to start with the hypochlorite ion. There it is. What about it?
It's reduced to chloride.
Makes chloride. Okay.
Kind of the whole problem where you start
What whole problem?
the reaction of sodium
Oh, so you recognized that because it says net ionic equation, we don't need to worry about sodium hypochlorite or sodium thiosulfate. We're looking at the active species. So we start with a half reaction. Hypochlorite yields chloride. How about the next part? So thiosulfate makes sulfate. Now I have two half reactions. I can balance the two halves in acid and add them back together, and I'm done. One chlorine, one chlorine. One oxygen, no oxygen. Add water. Two hydrogens, no hydrogen. Add two hydrogen ions. -1 here, and I have a +2, so I need to add 2 electrons. So now 2 electrons and 2 hydrogen ions is 0, a -1, and a -1. 2 sulfur, 1 sulfur. Add a 2. 8 oxygen, 3 oxygen. Add 5 waters. 10 hydrogen, no hydrogen. Add 10 hydrogen ions. Look at the charge. A -2 here. I have a -4 and a +10, so that gives me a +6. What's the difference between a +6 and a -2? How many electrons? 8. So I add 8 electrons to the more positive side. Now I have 2 electrons in one half and 8 electrons in the other. What do I do? Yeah, multiply this one by 4. So I get 8 electrons plus 8 hydrogen ions plus 4 hypochlorites yields 4 chloride plus 4 water. Now I can add them together. What? Now I left the second one as it was, and all I did was multiply this one by 4. Now if I look at this, I have 8 electrons on each side. I have 10 hydrogens in one and 8 hydrogens on the other side, so I can cancel that. Leaves me 2 hydrogens. 5 waters, 4 waters, cancel 4 waters. Now I write down what's left when I add them up. Water plus thiosulfate plus 4 hypochlorites yields 2 sulfate plus 2 hydrogen ions plus 4 chloride ions. Now, if I didn't make a mistake with all that crossing out and adding, I should be okay. 2 hydrogens, 2 hydrogens. 1 oxygen plus 3 is 4, plus 4 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8 oxygens. 2 sulfur, 2 sulfur. 4 chlorine, 4 chlorine. I have a -2 and a -4, so I have a -6. -4 plus 2 minus 4 is equal to a -6. So I wrote a balanced net ionic equation for this reaction. Was that really a difficult problem? Not at all. Not once you said, all I need is this. Hypochlorite makes chloride, thiosulfate makes sulfate. That really was not hard at all. But did it seem overwhelming, perhaps, when you read it? Did it make you think, what is this? We didn't do this in class. Because that's what I hear from my students. Well, the test isn't like what we did in class. Well, it is. Maybe you just don't recognize it because things look a little different. Let's look at something else that I've been told isn't what we did in class. Look at this information and list these metals in order of increasing ease of oxidation. if these reactions occur spontaneously. So what you have to do is look at this and think about, what is this information telling me? When I look at this equation, what does this tell you? What kind of chemistry is it? Single replacement. And when we've talked about single replacement, what did we say about it? It's based on the activity series. So what does this tell us? This first equation. What's going on here? PU is more active than TL. What does the second equation tell us? RU is more active than PU. And what does the third thing tell us? TL? Yeah, it's flipped around, right? So RU is more active than TL. So how do those three pieces of information all go together into one? So this is the most active, and this is the least active. What does activity have to do with ease of oxidation? The more active it is, the easier it is to oxidize. So this is the easiest to oxidize. So how do you list them in order of increasing ease of oxidation? Start with what? Going left to right. How do I start? Increasing ease of oxidation in order of increasing. So do I start with the easiest or the hardest? The hardest. So which is the hardest? TL. Then PU. Then RU. And those are the kinds of questions that you might see on a multiple choice portion of the exam. And those are the questions that my students find very challenging. So if you think about them this way, perhaps it'll make sense when you come across something like that on the test. Okay.